Deadeye by Sam Llewellyn. Harry Fraser, sharp solicitor and hard sailor, is taking a whirlwind holiday, sailing his expensive new cruiser racer up the rugged west coast of Scotland. He's miles away from the worries of high society divorces, but perilously close to something else: death. Caught in the log one night, he's rammed and nearly killed by a ship without lights and propelled outside the law and into a mystery that has already claimed the lives of innocent men. He goes looking for answers and ends up framed for murder, hunted across Europe. He's running a desperate race to prevent an ecological disaster and to save the life of the woman he loves. It's pretty much does that, but with a bit of padding. So, hello, I'm Rob Deb, and welcome to A Book at Deb Time. Sam Llewellyn wrote this as part of a thematic series. It's not the same characters throughout. Of sea thrillers. He is what one would call a nautical fellow. I myself am not. And I've got to say, as a read, I'd say that this definitely is for the Alan Partridges out there. In 1990, it reads like it should have been adapted for a more high octane film than the bureaucratics that it is in it, possibly starring Jason Statham. So I put forward TV's Richard Sandling to direct. He's great. Because let's face it, divorce lawyer and deep sea diver. It's and 1990. You have this character. What's the best way to describe Harry Fraser? Harry is the guy from the ads that I grew up with. You can see that this is the emergent nouveau riche sort of bit latter day. 1990, we've sort of outgrown the ads, but the sentiment was still there of the square mile. Best way to describe him in terms of his backstory is married a sex kitten just before she became a cat, right? Which says everything about what's in here. Harry's why deep sea diving at least has some plausible reasons on why he's as athletic as he is, but his rely on divorce, which is a very relatively new thing. Again, not that divorce itself is new, but it's like there was a wave in the late 80s to the 90s. Probably the first material step alluding to there of women having their own autonomy afterwards, having their own careers, as the emergence of career women, thus a certain spike in divorce, as we're seeing now. But I think that's to do with other elements more to the. I do blame women, but Harry is bought into this. At the end of the day, it's not like he isn't doing well. He's just bought the Green Dolphin, a luxury cruise racer. The basic story is he's a man on holiday. He's bought a racing ship. He's around the coast of Scotland to see another rich buddy because there's a certain all of this subclass as well of the aspiring aristocrat as opposed to the upper middle class. All hang out together in the likes of the coasts of Scotland. This is their Dubai at that time. He's made this money. He wants to ride his boat. He runs into another boat, and a man almost dies, who he saves. It transpires while he's recovering himself in a small town. He's able to meet a woman, Fiona Campbell, who basically wanders around in tight jeans, a thick knit, and is able to sort of fill that weird Nordic noir fetish of these middle class men of Middle England. Charlie Bond is banned from the comments, right down to the kind of asinine, bro homie, and of course, alcoholic tragedy that is her ex boyfriend Ewan, who gets blown up in a shed. The reason he gets blown up in his shed is put down to the fact that he collects World War II mines for tax purposes. That's not what's actually been happening. What's happening is, as you can see here, toxic waste. We get into a corporate conspiracy, which Harry Faulkner finds himself embroiled in. Incidentally, while we're doing this, it turns out to involve some of his other buddies from the past. So there's a certain Deus Ex Machina I'm not too happy with. although they do give him a rather tragic ex actress, habitual addict sister who basically raised him as well. So it actually, on the one hand, it's quite convoluted for a book of this sort of size, but it does give more rationale to why a divorce lawyer would know how to run a boat and have been like a bar manager in the equivalents of Ibiza at the time for 2 or 3 years. He goes back and forth from Scotland. He's got a wager to win, on which he's basically effectively bet the house because if he wins, this is the money for life. However, as much as there's that almost Ballardian high-rise element of these autocrats who are running it all, making the money from it all, to the little local petty crimes of it, it runs around from the square mile to sort of West End, Scotland, and back again at such a pace. I do find it quite bewildering. And as someone who's also, because I'm not that into the sailing elements, does get into these technical things, that is very hard for me to follow. I can follow him. I understand that the character Fiona's there is the love interest, but ultimately, when he faces his Moriarty at the end, he throws a rock at him. These moments of action that occur, uh, again, have a Partridge-esque element of like, well, I could have broken his knees, but I didn't, but I might have, but I could have. Um, there is one moment towards the end as well where he's able to clamber onto one of these ships. These toxic waste, again, ecological disaster, very 90s in the way it's done. Is that what they do is they have these red tins and they've painted them yellow, but actually they paint them red again, but then they paint them yellow again, or some nonsense like that. Doesn't really work, but there's a quarry, because of course there's a quarry, because it's the 90s and we're all missing Doctor Who. As he's trying to find this quarry with Fiona, who I'm sure should probably be pronounced a lovely Fiona, because the fetishizing in it is just not really there. She gets shot. Now we know that she survives because he puts a crash helmet on her head and uses ropes to drop her down a quarry. Uh, Again, I'm not sure. These moments of vulnerability, he then breaks into a boat earlier on, just before that, sorry, he's able to break onto a boat and almost shit himself because he gets seasick. Hang on, you've been a deep sea diver. I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure there's someone who would know and could put that in the comments themselves. But yes, this does come down to a billionaire who's very good at throwing knives, whereas he throws a rock in his face and that rock throws him down a quarry. Did I mention there's a quarry? So there's a quarry and there's a river. And that river has all these boats that are taking these toxic things that Ewan, who was getting mines, was going to tell people about, but he got blown up not by a mine, but they think it was a mine. Meanwhile, his ex-girlfriend Fiona is working for the big bad. The big bad is also someone who fronted Harry, the divorce lawyer turned deep sea diver's bitter addicted girlfriend, and says that she needs to leave the hospital. It's a pretty simple story of boy meets girl after saving the life of someone else. Everyone else dies because toxics and that. Boy leaves girl to confront evil corporate overlords to then be put on the run because someone dies in a way we don't actually understand. But it's okay because he gets a bike, gets on a boat, and has a shit. It's it wasn't bad on every level because it wasn't as audacious as some of the earlier works. I think it was a bit too earnest in the mechanics of the sea. There is a latter day idea, I think. This is like people who are into Warhammer, when they're not really into Warhammer, they just want the Age of Empire back. This is someone who wants to read Master and Commander, but knows it probably make them look very bad on the tube, so they've bought this instead. And I can't fault that. I do think there is a distinct audience there in 1990 that I had very little interaction with. I'm sure that there are many very lovely ladies I went to university with whose dads were all over this shizzle. Um, that's really the best way I could describe it. But if you want a 90s book with a bit of guns, few fisticuffs, and that weird way. Scotland is portrayed in such a weird way. It's like I'm sure he's been sailing there, but it's kind of like listening to an act talk about Edinburgh when all they've ever done is spend the occasional 3 weeks there losing about 10 grand. So earnest action aquatics, yes. Someone like myself, it's not a genre for me. I can subscribe, and I'll see you soon.